I couldn't tell you the exact moment my marriage started dying. It wasn't some explosive argument or dramatic reveal. No cheating texts or screaming matches. It was quieter than that, slow erosion. A shrug here, a dismissive comment there. Little things that stacked up until I couldn't breathe under the weight. But one night, something cracked wide open. We were sitting in silence in the living room. She was curled up on one end of the couch, phone in hand, completely absorbed. I was on the other side pretending to watch some show neither of us cared about. We didn't talk much these days. What used to be conversations had been reduced to updates, errands, schedules, reminders. Did you grab milk? My mom's coming Saturday. Don't forget the dog needs his meds. That was it. Then, without warning, she let out a half-laugh, one of those smug, under-the-breath things, and muttered just loud enough for me to catch it. You wouldn't last a week alone. I turned to her, thinking maybe I misheard. Sorry, what? Still staring at her phone, she said it again like it was some universal truth. You know what I mean. You'd fall apart if we ever broke up. You're not really built for the single life. This time, she looked at me dead in the eye. And there was this look on her face. Like she was doing me a favor by pointing it out. Calm, certain, almost bored. And for a second, I didn't know how to respond. I'm not flashy. I don't make six figures. I don't have some powerful job that makes people lean in when I talk. I've always just been solid. Dependable. But I thought that counted for something. I guess she didn't see it that way. Wow, I said, sinking back into the couch, eyes fixed on the ceiling. That's what you think of me? She sighed, the way someone does when they think you're overreacting. Don't be so sensitive. I'm just saying, being single wouldn't suit you. I kept my voice level. Why not? She finally set her phone down and stretched, arms overhead like she hadn't just thrown a dagger into my chest. You're just you, she said with a shrug. You're not exciting. Women want something with a little spark. You're more like a comfort item. Something easy to overlook. A worn hoodie. A lamp in the corner no one notices. I breathed almost to myself. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. The shift wasn't loud. It didn't slam into me like a car crash. It just settled. Like dust in an abandoned room finally visible in the dim light. This wasn't a throwaway comment. It wasn't sarcasm or teasing. It was real. It was what she thought. And if I was honest, maybe she'd believed it for a long time. I looked at her then, really looked. She wasn't just distracted. She was gone. Emotionally checked out like someone who forgot to log out but never planned on coming back. And I realized something I had been too proud or too scared to see before. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her cushion. Her fallback. Her convenient, predictable safety net until someone or something better came along. And the worst part? I had let it happen. I made excuses. I laughed off the way she joked about me around her friends, the times she barely listened when I talked about my job, the way she always seemed more polished, more alive, when she was headed out with coworkers than when we had dinner together. She didn't love me. She loved the ease I gave her. She loved that I wouldn't leave because she didn't think I could. I let out a slow breath and gave a slight nod. Just a quiet, resigned, okay? She glanced at me barely. Her eyes flickered with something, maybe irritation, maybe just distraction. Oh, come on, she said with a scoff. Don't go all emotional. I didn't mean it like that. But she did. She meant every word. And something inside me? It didn't rage. It didn't boil over. It just went still. Cold. Like a switch flipped in a part of me I didn't know existed. I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. I was done. And she had no clue. I pushed down the lump in my throat and managed a faint smile. Yeah, you're probably right. That smug little grin crept back across her face as she turned her attention to her phone. She didn't realize what she just handed me, clarity. Freedom. A quiet kind of permission. That night, I lay in bed with my eyes wide open, staring at the dark ceiling while her words replayed in a loop. You wouldn't last out there. That was her truth. Her certainty. She didn't think she could lose me because she never saw me as someone worth losing. And honestly, I didn't blame her. I had played that role too well. The dependable husband. The fixer. The stable one. I had built my life around making sure she had everything she needed, and somewhere in that process I disappeared. She didn't betray me with another man, not that I knew of. She didn't scream or storm out. What she did was worse in a way. She eroded me. Slowly. Subtly. With 1,000 paper cuts. She belittled my wins. Ignored my needs. Shrunk me down until I barely recognized the man I used to be. But now I did. And I was ready to take him back. That's when it hit me I had let her do this to me. I had stood by, convincing myself that marriage meant compromise, sacrifice, patience. But this wasn't compromise. This was decay. One-sided and slow, like a rope fraying one thread at a time. And I had just watched it happen. I turned my head to look at her, sound asleep beside me. Peaceful. Oblivious. She had no idea that in the quiet darkness of that moment she had finally lost me. I waited for grief to come. I thought maybe I'd feel gutted, broken over the marriage I once believed in. But I didn't. Because the truth is, this ending didn't just show up out of nowhere. It had been creeping in for years, and I had been too numb or maybe too afraid to face it. Not anymore. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to storm out and hand her the narrative of the fragile husband who took things too seriously. I was going to do this clean. Quiet. Strategic. I would take my life back on my terms. The next morning, I slipped out of bed early, careful not to wake her. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand. No hesitation. First step, I opened a new bank account in my name alone. Then I started transferring small amounts of money. Nothing big enough to trigger red flags, just slow, steady withdrawals. 100 here. 200 there. Enough to build a cushion. Enough to walk away when the time came without looking back. Next, I shut down most of our joint credit cards except the one she used the most. That one stayed open. Let her keep spending, unaware that the rope was already slipping through her hands. Then I did my homework. I found a divorce lawyer. Not just any lawyer, the right one. Someone who knew how to handle complex divorces, someone who'd seen this dynamic 100 times before. I scheduled a consultation for later that week. If I was walking out, I wasn't going to leave a mess. I was going to leave with a plan. I started scouting for a new place. Just a small apartment. Clean, quiet, mine. Somewhere I could breathe again. I gathered my personal documents, passport, social security card, tax records, and stored them somewhere safe. I backed up important files, shifted them to a private cloud account she didn't have access to. And through it all, I didn't say a word. I played the part. I smiled when she talked. I laughed at her stories. I was polite, present, agreeable. Not because I cared anymore, but because I needed her to believe everything was the same. Because in her mind, I wasn't capable of leaving. And that was going to be her biggest mistake. Once the legal and financial pieces were in motion, I shifted my focus to something I hadn't thought about in years myself. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and just stared. What I saw wasn't some tragic figure or broken man. But he looked tired. Worn down. Shoulders hunched, eyes dulled, like someone who'd spent too much time dimming his own light so someone else could shine. That stopped right there. I didn't hit the gym for revenge or attention. I did it because I wanted to feel strong again. To take up space. I started dressing differently, no more lifeless, forgettable outfits. I stopped fading into the background. I reconnected with old friends, people she had subtly edged out of my life over time. People who reminded me who I used to be. Most importantly, I stopped waiting for her approval. I stopped seeking her validation like a man begging for scraps. And sure enough, she noticed. The first time I skipped our usual couch routine to head out to the gym, she barely looked up from her phone. "Since when do you work out?" she asked, her tone lined with sarcasm. I grabbed my keys and said, "Just working on myself." She scoffed, but I saw it, that flicker of doubt in her eyes. A few days later, I walked out wearing a new shirt, tailored and sharp. Way better than the rumpled, colorless stuff she used to poke fun at. She looked me up and down and smirked. "Who are you trying to impress?" I took a sip of coffee. "Myself." She laughed, but there was something brittle behind it. For the first time in years, she was paying attention. Watching. Studying. But it didn't matter. Because none of this was for her. Every lift at the gym, every quiet morning with my own plans, every meal I cooked just for me, it all pulled me further out of her orbit. The fog she'd kept me in was lifting, and I was breathing again. And the best part? She still had no idea I was leaving. She still believed I was anchored, stuck, too soft to walk. But the foundation she thought was hers to stand on was already crumbling beneath her feet. Weeks passed. I kept my rhythm. Early mornings. Gym. Real meals. A better version of me. She'd make comments, small at first. "You're acting kind of off lately." Then they shifted. "Why are you suddenly so into all this working out?" Passive-aggressive one-liners followed. "Oh, is this your midlife crisis or something?" But I didn't flinch. I didn't explain. I didn't defend. That was new to her. She was used to me justifying myself, handing her ammunition she could twist. But I gave her nothing. Then came the night she tried to test the waters. She got home late, buzzed from wine and whatever attention she'd soaked up at dinner with her friends. She flopped onto the couch beside me, her voice syrupy sweet, her hand resting on my arm like none of the past few years had happened. "You know I was just messing with you, right?" she murmured. I kept my eyes on the TV. Messing with me about what? She gave a soft, drunken laugh. Oh, come on. That whole thing I said you'd never find anyone else. I didn't mean it like that. I looked at her for a long second. Years ago, I would have given anything to hear that. But now? I felt nothing. There were always those rare moments, those calculated flashes of affection she used like bait. When she reached for me first. When she laughed too easily, touched my arm, acted like we were still something. But I saw it for what it was now. A tactic. A last-ditch effort to keep her grip. And I wasn't biting. Don't worry, I said, standing up and stretching like I wasn't just shutting a door in my mind. Didn't bother me. Then I walked out, leaving her frowning behind me. She didn't realize that was the last time she'd ever try to reel me back in. A few days later, I moved quietly into the final phase. I came home early, like I used to. I cooked dinner, roast chicken, her favorite, back when we still pretended to care. The smell filled the kitchen. I poured a glass of wine and waited. She walked in, heels clicking against the hardwood, nose in her phone. You made dinner? She said, surprised but not exactly thrilled. Yeah. Thought we could have one last nice meal together. She tossed her bag on the counter and sat down. About time you put in some effort again. I smiled. She still had no idea. We ate in near silence. She chatted about a coworker's drama. I nodded when appropriate. She never asked about my day, not that I expected her to. Halfway through the meal, I pulled an envelope from my pocket and slid it across the table. She didn't even look up. What's this? Open it. She sighed, clearly annoyed, wiping her mouth before casually tearing into it. Her eyes skimmed the first page, then the second. I saw it hit her like a slow wave. Her chewing stopped. Her expression cracked. Inside weren't just divorce papers. There were bank statements showing the account she couldn't touch. Receipts for my new apartment. A clean breakdown of everything we owned and what she wouldn't be getting her hands on. She looked up at me, stunned. What the hell is this? I took a slow sip of wine and set the glass down. Divorce papers. Silence. Then a short, sharp laugh. You're kidding, right? This is a joke. I didn't answer. Just watched her. And that's when her face changed. The panic set in. You're serious? She asked, her voice a little thinner now. I nodded once. She scoffed and stood up abruptly, chair scraping hard against the floor. You've lost it. You're actually ending our marriage over some offhand comment. No, I said calmly. I'm ending it because I'm finally done letting you chip away at me. She started pacing, hands flailing slightly. You can't be serious. Over nothing? You're being dramatic. It's not nothing. It never was. She stopped and turned, eyes sharp. Oh, now you're Mr. Tough Guy? Please. This isn't who you are. You're right, I said, leaning back in my chair. It's who I should have been a long time ago. Her face twisted, panic, disbelief, anger, all crashing together. You really think you'll do better than me? She snapped. Let's be honest. You're going to fall apart without me. I looked her dead in the eye. I don't think so. That one landed. Her mouth opened, then shut. She was losing her grip and we both knew it. Then she tried a different approach. Her voice softened. Look, I know things haven't been great, but we can fix this. I'll try harder. Okay. I let that silence stretch just long enough to make it real. No, I said. You won't. Her hands clenched. So that's it? You're walking away. I picked up my wine glass, swirling the red liquid. You threw this away a long time ago. I'm just finally finishing the job. She inhaled sharply, shoulders stiff. So that's it? I nodded. Yeah, that's it. I stood up slowly, laid my napkin on the table, and said it again, soft, certain. Yeah, that's it. She didn't follow. Didn't yell. Didn't slam her fist down or throw a glass. And that's when I knew it was real. She understood. For the first time in our entire marriage, she realized she had no hold on me. No guilt to weaponize, no emotional leverage. And she didn't know what to do with that. I walked out expecting something. Relief, maybe? Sadness, possibly. But there was none of that. No cinematic swell of music in my head. No grand wave of emotion. Just stillness. The kind of stillness that comes when a storm finally passes. The weight I'd carried of always being less, of being an afterthought in my own life, was gone. In its place was something quieter, deeper. Freedom. The first few weeks on my own were strange. I had to relearn things I'd forgotten, how to live in a space that was only mine. At first, I hesitated over everything. Which couch to buy? What groceries to get? I caught myself reaching for approval that wasn't there anymore. I'd spent so many years bending around someone else that I didn't remember how to stand on my own. But little by little, the discomfort gave way to something else. Independence. I filled my place with things I actually liked. Books I'd never had time to read. A guitar I'd always told myself I'd learn one day. I found joy in the details, buying my favorite brand of coffee, choosing artwork that made me feel something. Sleeping diagonally across the bed just because I could. Those were victories too. I wasn't just moving on. I was reclaiming pieces of myself. Then came the physical shift. Not out of spite, not to prove anything, but because I finally had the time and the motivation to take care of me. The gym became my outlet. At first, it was rough. My body ached. My stamina sucked. But I kept showing up. Week by week, things changed. The first time I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and didn't wince, that was a moment. The confidence followed naturally. Not because I looked better, though I did, but because I was no longer apologizing for taking up space. For the first time in years, I could walk into a room and not feel like I had to shrink myself to fit. And people noticed. It was at a friend's housewarming party, maybe 2 months after everything was finalized, that I saw her again. I was standing by the bar, laughing with some guys I hadn't seen in forever when I felt it, eyes on me. I turned. And there she was. She hadn't changed. Still beautiful. Still perfectly styled. Still carrying herself like someone who expected the world to fall into place around her. But when our eyes met, something shifted in her face. A flicker. Like she was seeing me for the first time and didn't quite know what to make of it. Because the man standing there wasn't the quiet, safe guy she used to mold and dismiss. He was gone. And in his place was someone she never thought I'd become. She was looking at someone she didn't recognize. At first, she didn't approach. Just lingered near mutual friends, stealing glances when she thought I wasn't watching. But eventually, curiosity got the better of her. "Hey," she said. I turned, calm, sipping my drink. "Hey." She hesitated, caught off guard. I could see it, she'd rehearsed something, maybe even a dozen things. But standing there, seeing me like this, all her lines suddenly felt flimsy. "You look different." I gave her a small smile. "Yeah." Another pause. Her eyes scanned me, trying to connect this version of me to the one she used to walk over like a doormat. "So, have you been?" I let the silence sit a beat longer than normal before answering. "Good. Really good, actually." She nodded slowly, arms folding over her chest. I could tell she was fishing, waiting for a moment to grab hold of anything she could use to wedge her way back in. "I've been meaning to reach out," she said carefully. "You know, just to talk." I exhaled, tilting my head. "Talk about what?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. I saw it in her eyes. She didn't know whether to lean on shared memories, offer some vague apology, or pretend nothing ever happened. I didn't give her the opening. "Listen," I said, setting my glass down, voice even. "I don't have any grudges. We had our chapter, and it's done. No hard feelings." That threw her. Her eyebrows twitched, and she gave a forced little laugh. "Right? Yeah. Of course. It's just. I guess it's weird, you know? Seeing you like this." "Like what?" She swallowed. "Like this," she gestured vaguely. "You just seem different. More confident. More sure of yourself." I smiled again. Let the words hang between us before I leaned in just slightly. "I was always this person," I said. "You just never saw it." That one landed. I saw it flash across her face, the regret, the realization, and maybe deep down, the disbelief. But I wasn't angry. I didn't feel pity either. Because for the first time since I met her, I wasn't thinking about her at all. Moving on wasn't just about walking away from her. It was about finally choosing me. A few months later, I met someone new. Not because I needed to fill a space, not to prove I could. Just because I was ready. She listened when I talked, really listened. She laughed at my jokes like she meant it. She touched me like it wasn't a chore. But the truth? The real win wasn't her. It was me. Whole. Solid. Unapologetically myself. And that was the greatest revenge of all.